Nobody tells you what your job is actually costing you. Not your paycheck, not your boss, not your HR department. They give you the number on the left side of the contract. They never show you the number on the right. And the number on the right, the one that represents what you're trading away, that's the one that matters. You're not just trading hours, you're trading capacity. Every year you spend in a role that doesn't require you to grow, you're not standing still, you're moving backward. The skills you're not building are decaying. The tolerance for uncertainty you never had to develop is getting smaller. The muscle for generating your own income, the one you never needed because the deposit always arrived on the first, that muscle has been atrophying quietly for years. And here's what makes it invisible. The job keeps working, the money keeps coming, so your brain registers it as success. You're not failing. You're just slowly becoming less capable of succeeding at anything outside the system that employs you. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus is 37. He's been a senior analyst at a financial services firm for 9 years. He's good at his job, genuinely good. He understands complex systems. He communicates clearly. His performance reviews are consistently strong. Marcus is not unhappy. That's the thing. He doesn't hate Mondays. He doesn't dread his commute. He has a life that works, mortgage that's manageable, relationship that's solid, vacation time he actually uses. But Marcus has a number, not his salary, not his savings rate, a different number. It's the number of times in the last 12 months he sat across from someone younger than him, an entrepreneur, a freelancer, someone who built something of their own and felt something he can't quite name. Not envy exactly, closer to recognition, like spotting a version of yourself that took a different road and is now standing in a place you always assumed you'd eventually reach. Marcus has felt that recognition 17 times this year. He counted. What Marcus doesn't understand yet is that the feeling isn't about the other person. It's about a calculation his brain keeps running but never finishing. The calculation that starts with, what would I have built by now if I had started building instead of waiting? He never finishes it, because finishing it requires seeing the real cost of what he called being smart. The psychologist Barry Schwartz spent years studying what he called the paradox of choice, the counterintuitive phenomenon where more options produce less satisfaction. But there's a related mechanism he documented that's less discussed, the way stable, comfortable systems produce what he called preference falsification. People genuinely stop knowing what they want, not because they've found fulfillment, but because the system they're in never requires them to choose. Marcus hasn't had to choose in 9 years, and the longer you go without choosing, the less you know how. That's what the job is actually costing Marcus. Not money, not even time. His ability to know what he wants and move toward it. That's the price, and it compounds quietly, year after year, while the deposit keeps arriving on schedule. Before I keep going, I need to show you something I built because of exactly what we're talking about here. It's called the Free Your Mind Kit. 3 tools that work together. The ebook is 35 pages of real financial psychological diagnosis, not tips for saving money, a map of the invisible patterns that keep men with stable jobs from building anything beyond the job. The Stability Cost Calculator is an interactive tool. You put in your actual numbers and it shows you the real cost of inaction, in wealth, in time, in deferred freedom. And the Mental Reprogramming audio series is 3 tracks of 7 to 12 minutes each, built to listen to when you wake up or before sleep, working on identity, value, and action where knowledge alone doesn't reach. The 3 tools work together. The ebook builds intellectual awareness, the calculator builds emotional awareness, the audio tracks work on identity, not a course, no subscription, lifetime access, all for $9. The link is in the description. When you're ready, back to Marcus. There's a distinction I want to make because it matters. There is a version of stability that is a tool and a version that is a cage. The tool version is the one where the stable income funds the construction of something outside the stable income, where the predictability of the paycheck creates room to take risks that a paycheck makes survivable. The cage version is the one where the stability becomes the ceiling, where the question, "What else could I be building?" stops getting asked because the existing structure answers it before it finishes forming. Marcus has been in the cage version for a while. He knows this, he just hasn't named it. Here's the specific mechanism at work. Every year at Marcus's firm, there's a performance review cycle. Marcus prepares carefully, delivers well, receives a solid rating, gets a 3.4% raise, and returns to the same desk he's occupied for 9 years. The system rewards staying. It penalizes disruption. It creates, over time, a very clear, implicit message. This is what safety looks like. Don't break it. Marcus internalized that message, not as a decision, as an atmosphere. The way you internalize the rules of a place you've lived long enough that you stop seeing them as rules. The cost of this isn't visible in his savings account. It's visible in what Marcus never built while the savings account was growing. James Clear, in his work on identity and habit, makes an argument that I keep coming back to. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you believe yourself to be. That's how identity forms. Not through declarations, through patterns, through what you repeatedly do when no one is watching. For 9 years, Marcus's votes have been consistent. I am someone who stays. I am someone who waits for the right moment. I am someone who doesn't risk what works. That's not a character flaw. That's a vote that got cast too many times in the same direction. The votes are reversible, but you have to start voting differently. Marcus is smart enough to have constructed several sophisticated reasons why his situation is unique, why now isn't the right time, why the risks he'd be taking are categorically different from the risks someone else might take successfully. That sophistication is part of the price. The smarter you are, the better you get at building ironclad arguments for why you don't need to change. Smart people are very good at convincing themselves. It's one of the least useful things intelligence can do. The argument Marcus uses most often is the one about timing. He'll move when the market conditions are better, when his kids are older, when he's saved another specific amount, when the project he's been prototyping for 2 years is a little more ready. When is a remarkable word. It contains endless possibility and produces no action whatsoever. Here's what happens when Marcus removes when from the sentence and replaces it with what specifically this week. He finds out very quickly whether he actually intends to move or whether the timeline was always a mechanism for not moving. The answer is usually clarifying, uncomfortably so. Marcus eventually made a change, not a dramatic one. He didn't quit. He didn't burn anything down. He allocated 8 hours a month, 2 Saturday mornings, to developing a consulting practice around the specific knowledge he'd built in 9 years of analysis. Not because it was ready, not because the timing was perfect, because he stopped waiting for a version of ready that the system he was in would never allow him to feel. 6 months later, he had 2 clients and a 3rd conversation scheduled. The consulting income was small relative to his salary, but something had shifted in how he experienced his work, his weeks, his sense of what was possible, not because he'd escaped the cage, because he'd proven to himself, with evidence, that he could operate outside it. Identity doesn't change from insight. It changes from evidence. You now know something you didn't know when you press play. Your job has a number on the right side of the contract that no one showed you, not your paycheck, the cost. In capacity not built, in choices not practiced, in versions of yourself that exist only as the feeling Marcus recognized 17 times this year. That's not an accusation, it's a diagnosis. And a diagnosis without action is just a more elaborate story about why you're still in the same place. Drop one word in the comments, the thing you'd start building this week if you removed "when" from the sentence. If what you heard here made sense, the Free Your Mind Kit goes deeper. The link is in the description. Subscribe here because what you'll find on this channel isn't advice. It's a different way of seeing what you've always known but never named. Marcus still goes to the same desk. But those 8 hours a month changed what the desk means to him. Not because his job changed, because he stopped letting the job be the only thing. You can do the same. Not someday. Now.